Welcome to the Sunday Sit Down series. I am Eddie Ramos. Today we are joined by world-class martial arts owner in association with American Top Team Tampa, Rafael García. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
So, Ralph, as you join us today, and we're going to share your story inside and outside of the octagon, we'd like to start off where you are from and talk to us about your childhood.
Well, I was born in Gary, Indiana, 1976. Same hospital as the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson were born at. And it was a little steel mill city. Yeah, it's still there. I still have some family there, but it's pretty much run down at this point. But my parents moved to Tampa, Florida when I was about 8, 9 years old. Reason why is my allergies. I grew up with bad asthma. So doctor gave my parents two choices, Arizona or Florida. And we had family here, so they chose Florida.
Wow, very interesting. So literally growing up in a place like Gary, Indiana, and I've heard of it, obviously due to Michael Jackson and others, and it's a rough area. You come over to Tampa. How was that transition as far as, that had to be an eye-opener.
Well, as a kid, it sucked. And, it sucked and it had its benefits, too. I always wanted to do martial arts. I've always had a passion. Growing up watching Bruce Lee movies, watching Kung Fu theater, all kinds of martial arts stuff growing up. There was nothing close by to where we lived at in Gary, Indiana. So I never had an opportunity to train when I lived there. So when I left, what sucked was leaving all my family and all my friends, from growing up, the only people that I really knew. And I'm still friends with a lot of them. We went to kindergarten, all the way to like 4th or 5th grade or something. And so I still keep tabs with them, but leaving all that behind to something different, having to start all over, make new friends, and change of life. Used to having people over all the time. Now it's just me and my parents. So it was a big change for me. But one promise my parents did make me was, well, we'll find you a martial arts school and we're going to put you in once we get to Tampa. And they did.
That's awesome. So literally you took something that was very negative, turned it into a positive. We're able to take watching your movies of Bruce Lee, your interest in martial arts, and actually now walk into a gym. Talk to us about your first experience walking into a martial arts school.
All right. So my first martial arts school was here on Hillsborough Avenue. C.J. Bader was the sensei's name for an instructor, Kempo Karate. And that was my first experience. Me and my best friend, who were still best friends since we were kids, Roman Durda. We both walked in there and we both signed up. And we thought, man, watching the movies, it's all discipline. You got to be careful what you do, what you say. You got to live life, straight line. And it's funny because at that time we got left at the gym a little bit later, waiting for our parents to pick us up. And we're sitting there, and the instructor at the time, Bader, I hear him look at the window, go, "Man, did you see that girl?" And we looked at each other. We kids were like, "Hold on, this is the instructor. He's not supposed to be doing that."
Right.
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. We were with Bader for about a year, and then he closed down, and then I went to Fred Montesino, and they were partners for a little while, and I stayed with Fred Montesino probably till I was about 18. I got my first black belt when I was 14 in Taekwondo.
Wow. So talk to us, as you're learning the sport and you're moving into another gym and you're learning more about it. Talk to us about the friendships you made, kind of how you adjusted. That's a lot of change.
Yeah, a lot of change, but I think martial arts gave me a focus and gave me something to center on. So we started going to tournaments, and just everybody on that team during that time frame, we had probably about 10 of us on the team, all Spanish kids from 4 neighborhoods, and we would go compete in these tournaments, sometimes do car washes because we couldn't afford to go to tournaments, and a lot of times it'd just be us and the instructor. A few parents would go because we'd be out of town. We'd travel all over, man, Georgia, Texas,
Wow.
Florida, to go compete in these tournaments, and so we built a bond because you're traveling with these guys, and to this day I still have a lot of these guys that are still lifelong friends of mine. And we used to be these little poor Spanish kids go up there and whip up people in tournaments. We might have lost in the form division, but when it came to fighting, we always did good.
That's awesome. So is there something that sticks out in your mind of one of these fights as you're traveling that might have been your toughest? Is there one that sticks with you?
I think the one that really put me at a crossroads where I could have went and did something else or got more focused and knew, you know what, I need to change what I'm doing was, God, it might have been about 13, 12 or 13 years old, and it was the Junior Olympics. It was in Orlando, Florida, the Orlando Arena, the old Magic Stadium, the first one.
Okay.
So it was there, and that was probably the biggest tournament I have ever been to. I didn't know what to expect, and we had 60 to 100 competitors in everybody's division. So it was a 4-day tournament. First 2 days we're doing forms. The last 2 days you're fighting, but you're there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. So never being, I go to tournament on Saturday, get there at 9, weigh in, do what forms, do breaking, whatever I want to do, and then fight in the evening. I knew that, but I'm going home. This is a 4-day tournament, so we're stuck all day. You might even not even compete the first 2 days. We're stuck all day with these 60 to 100 competitors all lined up in the back hallway area, sitting down. So you're looking over, who am I competing against? Who am I going to fight? By the time that time came for me to fight, I did terrible. I wasn't mentally into it, and I lost on points. But it was just like maybe it overwhelmed me, and I could have went, yeah, maybe this isn't for me. But I always loved martial arts. I said, well, I have to change, and I took that experience, man, and I think that helped me later on. When I got older, because then when I hit 14, I started competing against adults, and I was beating adults, and I think that focus from that one big tournament and seeing how many competitors were there and having to wait, go for 4 days. And that affects your mind. And I tell my fighters this all the time, fighting is 80% mental, 20% physical. So if you doubt yourself at all or anything throws your game plan or your mindset off, that's going to screw you all up. And I think I learned that day. And it helped me focus more to get ready to give me tunnel vision for these tournaments.
Yeah, it's truly so important as far as the mental side of martial arts. And then you get into, I can relate growing up wrestling and having these 3-day tournaments where you're sitting there looking at your opponent, waiting to face them. By the time you face them, you're like sick of seeing them and you almost lose that aggression. Yeah. So yeah. True. And we see that a lot of guys, even before they get into the cage or whatever they're competing in, is they're mentally not even there. At that point, they've already lost the fight. So that's so important, and I'm glad that you teach that to your fighters. Talk to us about how you expanded into martial arts, what you focused on as you continued your pursuit of learning the various martial arts.
Well, I always had a passion of, I always thought I was going to box, I guess. So, traditional martial arts, which is what we came from, is way different now because the sports evolved, everything's evolved. So a lot of the old traditional stuff has gone to the wayside. But growing up, I remember doing one steps, we call them self-defense one steps, where you would be in your fighting stance, and then you have to key off or say go, and a guy would step punch, and you had a block, and you had to come out either with a strike with a punch or a kick, or maybe a sweep, take them down. I was always like, man, nobody really punches like this in the street, because I grew up always having a bad temper, and martial arts helped me control that. But I was always fighting in the streets. So it was always like, man, no one fights like this. No one's going to give you an opportunity and wait for you to say go, or they're going to come at you and step punch. Everybody just goes and throws, trying to knock you out. Right. So I'll just do it this way. This is the way the martial arts is, blah, blah, blah. Them doing the forms. And I'm like, well, what is the purpose of that? Oh, I just do them this way because this is what this is for. And I did take pieces of that help develop certain muscles and your stances and the posture to be able to throw more effective strikes. But I still question a lot of it that really didn't make any sense to me or didn't make any use. And then, so I was always outside the box thinker. So I always wanted to learn, like Taekwondo's 90% legs. When we did tournament, we did traditional Taekwondo. So you were the chest protector, then little shin guards, no pads on your hands because you couldn't punch in the face, and you have a headgear and a mouthpiece and throwing stuff. So you've got to hit to the body, but to hit to the body and get a point, you have to create a trembling shot. You have to move the person for the judge to give you a point. But you can kick to the head, kick to the body all day as hard as you wanted to. Back then, there was a lot more knockouts. Now, the sports changed. It probably started changing in the late 90s to where, hey, excessive force, you can't hit that hard, or you're going to get disqualified. So now it's more like playing tag. Who's the fastest one to get there? And my generation came up where if I hit you, I'm trying to knock you out with whatever I hit you with, which I think is more effective for self-defense and reality fighting. But I knew there were still holes in that, even though I was good at it. I was like, well, I got to learn how to punch somebody in the head. So then I took it upon myself to start doing open tournaments. Now I would compete against not just Taekwondo people, karate, kung fu, and all the other striking arts. So now instead of going continuous 2 minute rounds where it's nonstop action, you go, and it's like a 3 minute round, but it's whoever scores the most points. So if I get you with a back fist to the head, a round kick to the body, they all say stop, and they call the points. So now it gave me a different perspective. Oh, I can punch to the head. So now I work my quickness to get in, get out, not really get hit. Plus I have the other, for the traditional. Then I took it from there to where, man, this isn't enough. I want to learn how to do pretty much all together. And that's when one of my buddies, Eddie Dominguez, owned American Dragon Dojo, and he was affiliated with Joe Lewis, who's a legend when it comes to kickboxing. And I went to one seminar, and I remember all the questions that I had all these years about why do we do this, why do we do that. He said the same thing. He goes, everything I'm going to show you is backed by science, and it's going to make sense. And sure enough, it did. And just from that one seminar, which was like 3 hours long, I remember it increased my striking and made me a better striker just from that one seminar. And I got to train with him a few more seminars after that because I used to bring him into town all the time. So that was a big game changer for me was Joe Lewis. I was probably about 19, 20 years old, I think, at that point.
So as you're learning from some legends essentially in the sport, when did you decide to say, you know what, I want to continue to move forward in this, possibly turn pro, move on into getting into beyond just the tournaments? When did this come about?
Well, to go back a little bit, I was probably about 16. I was doing a local tournament here,
Okay.
and I was in black belt division, and there was a kid from Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rican team came in, and I didn't know if these guys were that level. So they came in. And one of the guys in my division, he was 18 years old though, and he sandbagged and said he was 16 for that division.
Wow.
So I went ahead. I beat him, and then afterwards, the coach comes up to me and goes, "Hey, are you Puerto Rican?" I said, "Yeah, both my parents are from the island, Rio Grande and Abuela." And he goes, "Man, you just beat a guy from the Puerto Rican Olympic team. He's 18." And I go, and I got a guy was like, "So he's 18? He lied and competed against me at 16?" And yeah, but so he gave me an offer that I could go try out for the team or be an alternate for the Puerto Rican team because I beat one of their guys. But I had to live in San Germán, Puerto Rico for 1 year. I think his team's called Los Gallitos. And man, it was a good opportunity. I look back now, I should have just done it just to put that on my resume, Olympian. And I didn't. I was in high school. And, I'm going to make any team. I try to make the U.S. team, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't go. So I missed that opportunity. So that was probably the end of my traditional Taekwondo career as far as competing there, even though I was still doing open stuff. And I was looking for more. But also around that time frame, I remember I made my parents buy the first UFC pay-per-view. I think it was like 93. Wow. So I was probably about 17. And I remember watching it. So we always, growing up doing traditional martial arts, always had the question, which style's better? Kung Fu, karate, judo, wrestling, box. What's the best? And everybody said, oh, my style will beat you because of this. We finally got to see it. So we see this little guy in pajamas, wearing his gi out there tapping everybody out. And we're like, how is this guy doing this? Because he's on his back. We've never seen nothing like that. And that was, of course, Royce Gracie, who changed the world of martial arts. And that right there changed my whole perspective. Man, I got to learn this stuff. But there was nothing in this area to learn that. So there's a guy here, a lot of local guys know, Shane Dunn. He coaches a team called SPMF. I don't even know if they're still around. He had a guy named Alex the Chief Hunter who was in UFC 7 or 8. Wow. And they did a seminar at an Aikido school in West Tampa area, I want to say, maybe Hyde Park. And so I went to check this out, man. I went, I want to try this out. This UFC guy, I get to meet somebody from that. So I went, and they were showing all straight jiu-jitsu stuff on the ground, and I loved it. And they were so far in St. Pete, though, I couldn't make the time to go train with them. But that was my first eye-opening experience with them when I was like 18, 19. And then from there, I ran across my first jiu-jitsu instructor, David Hurley, probably about 2000. He was at my apartment complex, and I ran into him at the pool area. Had a world class martial arts shirt on, and he was asking me, "Hey, you train?" So, yeah, it's my gym. And he goes, "Man, I performance martial arts over here with Ross, Ellen, and this and that." I go, "Oh, cool, man." He goes, "You ever do any grappling?" I go, "Man, I've always wanted to." And those guys, that's what they were focused on, jiu-jitsu. So we worked the deal out, and it took a couple years, but by 2003, I had Ross and Hurley teaching Tuesday, Thursdays jiu-jitsu classes at my gym. So I started getting involved into grappling. I started from a white belt level, and now I'm a first degree, uh, soon to get my second stripe on my belt. So second degree, which is crazy to me because when you start your, especially jiu-jitsu is like the hardest martial arts to get ranked in because it's not like, oh, I deserve to be this. You have to put the time in, and you have to. Your instructor will know when you're ready. It's nothing like you have to learn this form, that form, or learn this terminology. It's nothing like that. You have to. Your instructor knows when you're ready for that next level.
All right.
But so I started my journey with them at white belt, and then I got my blue belt, and then they split off. I stayed with Hurley, and Hurley gave my purple, my brown, my black, and my first stripe on my black belt. And then just I never saw myself getting past purple because back then the sport was so different. It's not as popular as it is now. For a perfect example, when you talk MMA, first thing people say is UFC now. Oh, you train UFC, you train UFC.
Right.
Back then, we used to call it no holds barred. So on my gym windows, we had NHB for no holds barred training.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
That's
called Vale
interesting.
Tudo in Brazil. So that's what our focus was. That was MMA for us. And then just watching the sport evolve now, and it's just crazy how popular it is. And everybody thinks like the UFC is like the biggest thing, end all. It has to be in the UFC. They don't see the rest. Like we grew up watching Pride, WEC, IFL,
Strike
Strike
Force.
Force, and EDXC. All those great promotions. They all had great because they're all competing against each other. Once UFC bought them all over, even though they say it's not a monopoly, it is. It's like where else can fighters go? So everybody assumes UFC has all the best fighters when it really doesn't. There's a lot of promotions out there like One FC that was making big waves before this whole pandemic thing started. Who else? Bellator started coming up, getting stuff,
Even Glory
doing
Kickboxing.
more shows. Glory Kickboxing.
Some great,
There was another
great
show
athletes.
I quartered somebody in Korea called Road FC. They were doing big things too. They were right there with One FC. They're going back and forth and rising also. So that Asian market's a whole other market people don't even know about.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. We had Karate Combat here in Orlando with Boss Rutan. He came in and talk about some world class athletes and having an understanding a little bit different of a setup and that experience, but it's something that they're actually selling as a pay per view over in Asia. As you said, you talked about going
I
over.
heard that event. I heard that event was only by invite, right? They didn't
Yes.
sell tickets for that.
So
Yeah, my buddy Andy Glenn, who I think is the best referee in the whole state of Florida, he refed the fight.
Yeah, shout out to Andrew Glenn, great guy. We'll give him a shout out, give him a little bit of love here. Buddy of mine as well,
Yeah.
and Andrew's a great guy. So yeah, he was part of
You
that
need
show.
to get him on here because a lot of people don't know his background. I have so much respect for the guy. I've known him for so many years because he started off. He was a fighter. So to me, if you're gonna judge, referee, or whatever you're gonna do to be a part of this, you got to have some kind of knowledge about it. And if you've never fought, competed in anything, or trained in anything,
Yeah,
you're sitting here judging somebody or refing somebody. You might not know what's going on at that time. And if I'm a judge and I make one bad call because it's a decision, I think this guy won because I like the way his shorts look or whatever. That other person's career is like this because no one looks to see how you lost. They just see the loss.
right.
And when it's you lost, like, oh, you got to get some wins before we take him to the next promotion.
And I truly, as you share that, I respect what you're saying totally. Someone that's always wanting to learn. You've talked about going and seeking out people that have been in it before you as someone that trains in it. That's vitally important to keeping an open mind. A lot of people get stuck and think it's a one-way street. They don't want to expand. The fact that you continue to harp on that and say, you know what, I went and sought these people out. That's the message we need to share to younger people that want to learn. You have to go out and explore. Don't just think it's a one-way street. So I think that's great. And someone like Andrew, who has been in there himself, to be in that position, that's very important. So that's a great message.
And I started when I was 9. I'm 44 years old now, and I'm still training, and I'm still learning. I went to Thailand last year and I trained at Yokkao Gym. I was supposed to do a private with Sanchi, and he canceled on me. I got it a month out. It was $200 for 1 hour, which is worth it. It's like playing one-on-one basketball with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And he goes, 1 week I took a fight in England. Oh, I'll be back. I'll get you next week. And I was like, I'm only there for 8 days. So I got with another kid who was 26, but amazing. I had over 200 Muay Thai fights.
Wow.
And I got to train with that kid. We ended up going about an hour and a half, 2 hours, man. And it was a little cheaper because he didn't have that name recognition. But, man, just the little things I picked up from that young kid that had 200 plus fights that experience. You know, so those guys all start young. They're fighting when they're 5, 6 years old.
Yes.
And then by the time, like Sanche, at the time when I was going to train him last year, he's got more fights now. He was like 262 fights. And I think I want to say, like, out of those 260 something fights, maybe 305, whatever it was, he only had like 30 losses.
Wow.
So that's a lot of experience.
I think it's great to reach out to others and expand our knowledge and want to continue to learn as long as you've been in it. I appreciate your patience, too, knowing that you have this knowledge, and it's got to be frustrating going to some of these events and saying, wait a minute, my guy lost this fight because of this or that, and you're like, wait a minute, I've been doing this forever, and I have an understanding of it. So, and as you continue to share your knowledge.
It doesn't get frustrating because as a trainer, as a coach, I try to keep, expanding my knowledge in the martial arts so I can give it back to my fighters and people that come and train with me. Because I train not just fighters, I train regular people too. But it's my job to keep on expanding my knowledge because no one knows everything.
Right.
And there's always going to be a question that they're going to have, and I want to be able to have the answer for it. But as far as a fighter goes, we only have so much control as a coach or as a trainer. Once the fighter goes out there, anything can happen in that fight. They could have got caught with something mentally.
Right.
They tell us they had other stuff on their mind, family, change, all kinds of stuff can happen. I've been in corner of guys that are monsters, and it's almost like playing a video game. They have the control, and they listen to me to a T. Right when I call something, I tell them, do this, watch out for this. They're on it, man. Then I have the other guys that it feels like it's a broken controller. They don't listen for anything. But when I have a guy or a girl who's like that, where they listen to everything, and I've cornered them for 10 fights, 11 fights, whatever it could be, and then that one fight, they're not listening. Something's different, something's wrong. And I could tell in the walkout. But when I look in their eyes, I'm getting them psyched up mentally to walk out there, if they're there or if they're not. But by that point, if I know there's a difference, I can't really do anything about it. Just to get a fighter's mindset to change when you're about to walk out, 30 seconds out, there's nothing you can do. So all you can do is be there for your fighter, give them advice, give them the water, and if they lose, just like if they win, you still got to be there for them. A lot of times, things people don't see, as a coach, we have different hats. So we have to be almost like a father figure sometimes. Other times, we have to give them advice on different things. We have to help them out with different things. Like if a fighter gets hurt, who's there in the hospital? We are. A lot of people don't see that. Everybody else goes to the after party. We're there with them, getting their CAT scans, stitches, whatever else. They got a broken hand, X-rays. So that's a lot of stuff people don't see.
Yeah, it's a very important thing, and I'm glad to see that. And I've experienced seeing you do that, and at different events throughout Florida, working with you, Ralph. It's an honor, and I appreciate you sharing this background knowledge and your knowledge overall of the sport. When did at the point come, as you were at age 19, 20 in the sport and learning at various gyms and learning different martial arts, you want to open a gym? When did that come into the fray?
I opened my first gym when I was 22.
Wow.
And I'm still going strong, man. I'm 44. It's just one of those things. I always wanted to do it. I love to teach. And I started teaching when I was 14. My instructor, Fred Montesino at the time, had me teaching at the Boys and Girls Club on the Fly over here called the Zonta Boys and Girls Club. And I remember I had 30 kids there running around crazy, and only like 2 or 3 that were in the front that wanted to learn. So I just focused on the ones that wanted to learn. But he did that on purpose to show me patience. Because to be an instructor, you have to have patience. And it also showed me everybody's different. So I get this question all the time. When guys come in and they do this, you teach them that. I go, if it's a fighter, I build them on the fighter. So if he's already an NCAA wrestler, whatever he is, I'm going to give him the tools he doesn't have. I'm going to help him going to say, all right, full guard, this is where you're going to work off the back. He's already got a solid base as a wrestler. So he's going to probably be on top most of the time. He's going to control where the fight goes. And then if it's a kickboxer, he's got good striking. I got to work on your wrestling. And which give a shout out to Coach Mamu Goma. He's our wrestling coach at our team. He's probably, I think, one of the best wrestling coaches in the whole world. I get people that come here from other countries and train with him, and they're like, man, this guy is probably the best wrestling coach I've ever had. It's his knowledge, and he's hands-on just like me. So he's not just going to tell you how to do something. He's going to show you. And that's another thing that attracted me to jiu-jitsu was we drill a move. Now, every class, you do live rolling at the end. So now I have to put this move on somebody that's going to resist me. And if I can do that, it works. And if I can't, then I got to go back to the drawing board and work on it some more.
Yeah, and I've met him. Good guy, man. I'm glad you gave him a shout out. Really nice guy. And actually, I've seen him. He'll be at an event, and he's wearing regular clothes, and he'll get in there with the guy and get going. I mean, that's awesome. I've seen it firsthand. G Wrestling.
His last name is Goma.
Goma.
Yeah, my move, Goma.
So, Ralph, you open the gym. You're 22 years old. You've learned so much up to that point, and you continue to expand. If you could talk to us about your amateur promotion that you started in 2012, if you could talk to us about that.
All right, World Class Fight League, how that came about. I had really at that point no interest in doing a promotion. I was helping Joe Valdez out with RFC, him and Jason Fryer. So basically, I fought for those guys. I cornered in those shows, and which I really appreciate. Nothing but love for Joe and Jason all these years because they gave me the door to be able to do all the stuff I did. So I've done everything when it comes to MMA, and I think everybody should do this because pro wrestling, they make you do it too. I've put the cage together. I've taken the cage down. I've interviewed fighters in the back. I've done commentary for multiple fights. I still remember one of the fights, his very first pro fight here in Florida, coming out of the Armory, Edson Barbosa, who's in the UFC.
Yeah.
He's got probably about 20 fights in the UFC at this point. I commentated his first fight here. He's going against a boxer. And I called the finish because he was leg kicking the guy, and the guy was backing up, dropping his hands, going against the cage. And I go, watch out, Barbosa's going to do a jump knee, he's going to set up a knee. And then guess what? That's what he did. He set up a jump knee, knocked the kid out. I think it was first round, yeah. But I was there commentating that fight. So I did that. I've managed fighters. I've, because of me, when I used to fight, learning how to get sponsors. So when I manage fighters, I teach them how to get sponsors. I teach them what they got to do for nutrition. I teach them what they got to do for training, schedule-wise, and all that. And as far as, I give them a path if they listen, where there's no detours. It's straight to success. But what happens is a lot of times these guys are on this road, and family, other people telling them things they want to go, so they go off to the detour. And then later on, never feels to. Not one fighter has ever told me, man, I should have listened to you, blah, blah, blah. I went this way. I was listening to them. I know. And I told you I was there, but it happens to everybody, man. So, but going back to the question, so the RFC got me doing all this stuff. I was doing pretty much everything at that point, MMA-wise. And I started doing a radio show called the Florida Combat Network. It was on CBS Sports with a guy named Dion. I still get phone calls for people, hey, where Dion's at, he still owes me money. I'm like, man, he owes me money too. So he's a little shady character, but I did the radio show for about a year, and we won like #1 radio show for MMA in Florida and all this. And he came to me with an idea because a friend of mine, Mike Yanez, he was doing the first amateur shows here. He goes, man, we should do a show like Mike Yanez because we got the radio show. We can offer sponsorship packages with the radio show for the show. Oh, that's a good idea. And he goes, everybody, and you're good with everybody in the sport. You do the matchmaking, I'll get the sponsors, and we can both promote it. I said, you know what? All right, I never thought about it. I'll do it. So we started doing it. It's called the Florida Combat Challenge. So we did our first show, which was a nightmare, at the Tilted Kilt in their parking lot. And we had some barricades, but we didn't have the right security. People were coming in, coming out. And we had some great fights, though. Matter of fact, who had one of their first amateur fights there? A friend of mine that's local UFC fighter here, Billy Quarantillo.
Yeah.
He fought on that card. Yeah, amateur fight. So he fought for us there. And then I got screwed over by this guy after the first show. Second show, we did it at the DoubleTree, so we stepped it up.
Yep.
So this time we were more organized, and we ended up with maybe about a 400 to 600 person crowd. So it was, for us, second show, successful show.
Right.
And some great fights. The guy screwed me on money again. And then he comes to the end, and I knew he was screwing me because we would go to the after party, which was always like a dollhouse, was sponsoring that show at the time. And this guy's buying shots for everybody, throwing money. So I'm like in my head, we made money on this show. A few days later, oh man, you don't believe this, we didn't make no money. Dude, I just saw the way you were spending money. You got to tell me we didn't make money because you shouldn't have been throwing that money out.
Right.
So that was it for me. I cut ties with him. He thought he could still do it without me, but I had all the contacts because I'm the one that's got the rapport with the gym owners and the fighters and the sponsors that I brought to the table. So I approached Dwayne Spires, who he does MASH, which is a company that shows martial arts gyms how to increase your summer camp after school and be more successful like that. But he was ring announcing at the time, and he was doing his own martial arts school. So I went to him. I go, Dwayne, I know you're a good business guy. I need someone to do this, what Dion was doing. Would you be interested? Man, you know what? I want to do business. Let's do it. So it's funny. I'm coming up with names for the promotion, and my lawyer, shout out, longtime sponsor, longtime friend, Anthony Gonzalez, Bertie Gonzalez Law Firm. He gave me the name. He goes, bro, you're world class martial arts. Call it World Class Fight League. I go, man, that's not a bad idea. So that's where WCFO came from. So I went ahead and branded it, and we made the company, and we had our first show. I remember we were supposed to have it in a gutted out movie theater, but they didn't have the permits yet. And we've been working on this thing for 6 months. And this guy, oh yeah, we'll be okay for the show. So I thought it'd be nice, the cage in the middle, if everything's gutted out, and there's a local bar next door. We'd have the pre-party, after-party there. It worked out perfect. We just got to get chairs and tables and all that. About a month or two out, the guy's a month out because we were like last minute. The guy tells me, hey man, I never got my permits, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be able to do the show there. We already started advertising this thing, putting fight cards together, getting sponsors. So I think it was Mike Catuzzo, I can't remember, that was sanctioning me at the time. He had a connection in Newport Richie at a club called Club Ignite. And it was like the only nightclub that was out there. And well, let's go look at it. We looked at it, and it was big enough for what we needed. So we did our first show in Newport Richie at Club Ignite, and they closed 6 months after we did. I remember the guy told me we had 600 people in the audience. We used the kitchen that they didn't use anymore for one of the locker rooms. Then we had this little closet locker room upstairs for the other locker room. But I remember it was a crazy night because you saw these meth heads walking around, and we're trying to count money, and random people are walking in this room. And I don't know, the guy comes up to me, man, this is the best thing we've ever had in business, man. You know, can we do this again? I go, yeah, we'll talk about it. But I was like, I ain't coming back out here. So after that show, me and Dwayne talked. We went to the DoubleTree.
Yeah.
Did a few shows there, and then it started blowing up, man. It just started catching fire. People wanting to fight for us, and then sponsors coming aboard, and crowds getting bigger. So we said, let's step our game up. Let's go to downtown Hilton. That's where we went. And that was a lot bigger.
Right.
We had more people. I think the most people we had in attendance at that point was 2,500 at that venue there for an amateur show, which was amazing.
That's a lot of people.
We started getting bigger sponsors. We had Alibi Whiskey, came in with 10,000 for an absolute that we did. Because then we brought in Art of Grappling, which was Chris Rodriguez. I brought her in, and I said, we have this room all day. Let's do this tournament. And we brought her in, and we started doing that. So think of it like this: me and Dwayne would stay at the hotel wherever we were doing a show at. We'd be there for weigh-ins, so 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, meet up, go over stuff for the next day. Then we'd be up at 7 o'clock the next morning. Have to be downstairs, ready for this tournament, because we started tournament right about 9, 10 o'clock.
It's an all-day
and
thing.
Everybody had to be weighed in and registered before that. So we came down and helped Midget with the show. We wouldn't finish that till about 2:33. Once that's over, the cage is already set up. We put the cage up the night before. We had to roll up all these wrestling mats. And you said you used to wrestle, so you know how heavy those things are, man.
It's a lot of work.
And, bro, we had to do those little dolly wheels, which helps out, but it's still a lot of work.
And if you don't have the right amount of people, you're going to have a hard time.
Oh, yeah. And And that's what happens. Everybody wants to help you at first, and then when it's closed down time, you got to take everything out. You can't find nobody. Same thing with the cage. So we had the U-Haul parked in the back. So we're pulling these mats up, loading them up. Then we go upstairs. He goes to his room. I go to my room. We shower, put our suits on, and then we come back down and try the doors open at 5 or 6, greeting people, making sure everything's set up right. Fighters are there, coaches are there, everybody's at the right bands. So we're making sure everything's running right. And then we're there till about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then taking the cage down. So that's a long. And then if it's an sponsor, you have to go to the after party, trying to make time to make the after party and all this too. So I tell people, it used to take me about a week
to recover.
From those shows.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour day for sure.
And nonstop. And not only that, it's like a fight. Like, all right, you got the fight. That's all people see, but they don't see all the training, all the build-up, everything that led to that fight. Same thing doing a show. I got all these fights dropping. I have to replace opponents, sponsors. I got to get sponsors, posters, tickets. I have to make sure the website's up, the tickets are being sold. You got to do all that building up to it. So people don't see all that. They come to the show. Oh my God, look at all these crowds. Look how many people are here. Oh, we should do this. This looks easy. So, and I guess that's a compliment when someone tells you we make it look easy. But because of that, people see us. I've had so many people spin off trying to do the same thing, and it usually never works out, man. It's a lot. You really have to be invested into it.
The World-Class Fight League is what Rafael García operates. Started in 2012, and I appreciate you sharing the background in the process and how hands-on, as someone that runs the show, has to be to make it look somewhat easy, and we all know it's not. So, Ralph, as we've gone through your childhood, learning the sport, and it's spanning at a time when the sport was blowing up and you're learning literally on the job as you went, that experience, that's something a lot of people don't have. You literally were learning the different martial arts as the UFC started, as the martial arts started to expand. Like you talked about all the different promotions now, and that there's so much talent out there, and becoming essentially what they call a 5-tool player. I think that's amazing that you're able to share your knowledge and continue to, and I want that message to be sent across today to the viewers. You have to keep an open mind. You want to continue to learn. So, Ralph, as we wrap up today, we like to learn a little bit more about you outside of the octagon, outside of martial arts. What are your other passions?
Wow. What's funny about that is I was always so busy, focused on martial arts, on the business, on the training people, on the fighters, that during this quarantine, was a good 10 weeks that we couldn't do night classes. I was lucky because I do an after-school program, so we were still fortunate to have the after-school program. I only had 5 kids, but their parents were essential workers, so I kept the doors open for them to help them out. So I was there all day. Not all day. I had Edgar come in. He's one of my fighters. He did the morning session in Kotlin, and then I come in about 1, but I'd be done about 5:30, and that's it. My day's done. And I was, man, I've never been out of here every day like this consistently for this many weeks. It's crazy to me because I'm always like, my schedule would be get home at 10, 10:30 at night, sometimes 11, shower, eat, and then try to shut my brain off and unwind. So by that time it's already 12, 12:30. And then, if I'm thinking fights, I got to match fights up, or I got to put stuff in the computer for world-class martial arts. I'm always doing something. So by the time I could really shut my brain off, it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I lost a lot of sleep because of it. So during the quarantine, I was like, man, I got all this extra time. What are things that I really wanted to do? Maybe stuff on my bucket list. So I started learning how to play guitar, which I've always wanted to do. It's something I picked up when I was a kid, and was short-lived because I used to play at the church, and there was a guy at the church. His last name was Mosahat, and he was showing me how to play. But it was a Wednesday night. I remember this clearly because it broke my heart. My parents were driving back from church, and I fell asleep in the back of the car. So my dad picked me up, brought me in. He left my guitar on the top and the very back of the car. But they didn't think nothing of it. The next day, he had to take my sister all the way to Chicago. The car sat outside all day in the hot sun. So melted and like warped the guitar, and that was pretty much the end of my music career. So I said, you know what? I used to love that as a kid, and now I have the time to start doing it. So I started picking that up again. And what I found, I think it opened up a different part of my brain. Because when I'm playing, all the times I can't shut my brain off because I'm martial arts, thinking this, thinking that.
Right.
I was so relaxed. An hour would go by. Man, it's already been an hour. And I started getting tired. But I was so focused on this, learning how to do this. I'm a perfectionist. That's one thing that's good, but it's also bad because it makes me, I'm a perfectionist. And I get competitive too. So I want to be good at everything I do, which I get older. I'm older now. So I think, man, I can't be the best at everything. So I can't get upset about things. I just give my best effort on certain things. So I started doing that. I started reading again because I haven't had time to sit down and read books. So I started doing a lot of self-building books, motivational books, things that's going to make me better mentally and good for the soul, and also to help other people. Which and I started reconnecting with people and stuff too that I haven't talked to in years during that time frame. And
Awesome.
then the last thing was I have on my bucket list. I was supposed to do it last year, and then got too busy, couldn't do it. I want to do some stand-up comedy. So I started going to some of the shows when they reopened and watching the
Interesting.
open mic nights. And I think I have so many stories over the years, traveling with fighters, dealing with fighters, things at the gym that are funny that I think if I went up there and told these stories, especially if I said them a certain way, that I think people would laugh. So
Right.
that's on my list to do right now. And I sat down during that time frame, went over stuff, trying to write stuff down and all this. Now it's just I have to go to one of the open mic nights and try it out and either bomb or do good. But it's a learning process.
Yeah, for sure. And you're in the right place. I mean, I might see you at the Improv eventually here in Tampa one day. That'd be pretty neat to get Ralph Garcia up there on the mic. That's you actually answered one of my next questions as we do the fast facts. But before we get to the fast facts, I'd like for you to talk about your community involvement. You do have an after school program at American Top Team Tampa. Talk to us about that and the impact it's had on the local community.
Wow. So my after school program I've had for 21, 22 years here in Tampa.
It's
And
awesome.
I think I was the first one on this side of Tampa that had the martial arts program. Like 6 months after me, there was another martial arts school that opened up the street. He started doing the same thing. But we were the only two for a long time. And then, like in 2003, I remember this exactly. Because I started my program, my after school program, like I opened my business in '98, so about '99, 2000 is when I started the after school program. 2003, daycares were complaining because now at this point, more martial arts schools are doing it. They were like, they're taking business away from us, they're not child care licensed, and this and that. So we all had to get an attorney and fight why we can still do what we're doing. And they would come back with one or two reasons. No, they have to be child care. But if we would have got child care license, we would put more restrictions on things that we do. Like you couldn't tell kids, oh, 10 push-ups, 10 squats. You can't do stuff like that. You can't, uh, with the daycare stuff, if you're not daycare licensed, you can't help kids with homework and stuff like that. Um, what else? Uh, there was something else restriction wise, like you have to pay them to come out and inspect your facility, inspect your vehicles, which is more money. You had to have so many square feet to be able to have so many number of kids inside, and if not, you have to have so many fenced in square feet outside to be able to have a number of kids.
Wow.
So they came out with like two or three reasons why we needed to be, and our attorney came back with like 10 to 15 why we shouldn't be. So it kind of dropped, and I knew it because we fought it, man. We all had to pay this retainer for this attorney. It took about a year, and he won it. But after that, I knew, man. Once we did that, it's going to open the floodgates, and that's what happened. Now you see, when I go pick up, I see maybe about 20, 25 martial arts school bands. I see gymnastics. I
Yeah.
see dance, swimming, now sports camps for kids. I'm like, man, everybody and their mother is picking up after school now, but everybody thinks it's easy. That's why.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you do that and make a difference in your community, Ralph. You should be commended for that, and I appreciate you sharing that today. We will wrap up today on the show on the Sunday Sit Down series. We always have the fast facts. You answered one of the questions, something most people don't know about you. I would say the stand up, the prospect of you becoming a stand up comedian or your interest in that. Is there something else that most people don't know about Rafael Garcia?
What's funny about that is martial arts gave me the confidence to do things like that. I remember as a kid, I was always real shy because my mom taught me English, so she only spoke Spanish. So from kindergarten to fourth grade, I had to do speech classes to learn how to say right words in English. Like my English was so bad that my mom they say purple, I say purple. It'd be like totally off like that. Or it's always how everything's reversed if you think Spanish. So like if I said crab salad or salad, yeah, crab salad, I would say salad crab. It was always backwards.
Right.
So I had to get my brain trained and how to use my tongue a certain way to say certain things. So I think that I was always shy when I had to read in front of the class. You know how they go around the room? I would be sweating and I'm nervous. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to call on me. And if I mess up, these kids are going to make fun of me. Because back then, we didn't have that bully stuff. Even your best friends you had to have thick skin. They would call you names and make fun of you
Yeah.
and everything else. So I think martial arts, when I started doing it, competing in front of people, doing demonstrations in front of groups of people, I get like a little bit of like a hot dog showboat kind of thing where I think that helped me build my confidence to where I can start talking in front of people. So now for business stuff, I'm talking in front of people. I get in front of cage, I'm talking in front of people, doing interviews in front of people. So now doing the stand-up comedy, I'm not worried about people because I don't care what they think of me. I'm up there to do me, and it is what it is.
A lot of confident energy. That's awesome. Very good. Where is a place you would like to visit that you have yet to go?
I want to go to Brazil next year.
Okay. So that's definitely a must do in the next 12 months for you. That's the plan.
As long as everything clears up, yeah.
For sure. For sure. What would be your favorite food, Ralph?
Oh man, I like different types of food. That's just crazy too, because the martial arts, I have so many different styles of martial arts that I do. It's the same thing with everything. I like different types of food. Depends what I'm in the mood for. But I like Italian food. I love Spanish food. I love, wings, hamburgers, American food. I'll eat anything. I'll try anything. Um, I think it's because I always think outside the box and stuff, man. So I'm open to whatever. Same thing with music. I listen to all kinds of music. Today I might listen to country music. Tomorrow I might listen to some classical stuff. The next day some hardcore rap stuff. Another time Spanish music. Just depends on the mood I'm in.
That's awesome. And as we wrap up today, Ralph, what would you like to share to those that are tuned in? What's your message to young fighters, people that have an interest in getting into martial arts? What is your message to them?
Look at it as a lifelong commitment. Martial arts, it's not a. I don't look at it as a sport. I look at it as something that you're doing that you're committed to the rest of your life. And don't rush to get a belt. Like a lot of guys come in, they want, oh, I want this, or I want to be in the UFC tomorrow. Enjoy the journey. It's a slow process, but enjoy the journey. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Have fun with it, because once you lose that thing of having fun, it's not fun anymore. You don't want to do it anymore, and you're gonna find every excuse in the book to leave and not continue doing what you're doing. Also, these young fighters, man, you guys are all over social media, posting pictures all the time, training there, training here, and you're not really training all the time. Get in the gym, mat time. Even if you don't take pictures for that day, Monday through Saturday, take Sundays off, get in there and train. There's days I don't feel like doing it, and I do it. You just got to do it if you want to get better, man. That's all you can do is time and persistence.
That's awesome, and we appreciate that message. You're a great example as you walk what you preach. I see you constantly in the gym and being a teacher and sharing your knowledge, and you should be commended for that. We thank you so much from Team La Perla Boxing and MMA in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Hey, let me give a quick shout out to my sponsors and people for you guys. Get off.
Yeah, go
Titan
ahead.
Medical, the World Class Fight League, World Class Martial Arts. You guys got to check them out. John and Sharice take care of everybody over here. If you need testosterone shots, you need weight loss stuff, IVs, whatever it is, check them out. Bertie Gonzalez, Anthony Gonzalez. You need anything with accidental or criminal, hit him up. Anywhere transport, you need anything transported, check those guys out. If no judges needed, check them out, nojudgesneeded.com. They have the best gear. No judges needed. They even got water. And then, guys, our next show, October 3rd, World Class Fight League.
I was going to get to that.
Check us out. Check us out. October 3rd, we're going to have a stacked card main event. I have one of my girl fighters who I think has a bunch of potential. It's on her, though, how far she goes. is Jordan Orgera. I have her fighting for the 125 WCFL title versus a girl named Destiny Nick Cuban. I hope I didn't mess her name up. She's coming from Vegas. She's coming. She's hungry, and she wants that belt too.
That's awesome. And where can fans access that? Will it be live streamed online?
I'm looking for another company right now if I can stream it for the October show. I think it'd be good. But we're taking all the precautions too because of all the stuff going on. We're gonna have people wearing masks, sanitizer stuff, and all that.
For sure.
But I'm looking to put a stack card, about 15 fights on the card, a few female fights, MMA, kickboxing, and if you guys want tickets, go to worldclassfightleague.com. We should have ticket sales up within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Or
Awesome.
check out one of your local fighters.
Thank you so much, Ralph Garcia, for joining us on the Sunday Sit Down series. We appreciate your time today and sharing your message and your knowledge. Continue to do what you're doing, and we thank you so much, Ralph.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Hope to be on the show again one day.
All right. Take care, Ralph.
Yeah.